How do you keep yourself motivated to eat healthy? This is the question I recently received. The answer would be the key to success is setting up the best eating environment until it becomes your habit. We all have time to make a resolution to ourselves. It's New Year, we're gonna eat healthier and then only find ourselves falling off the wagon. I'm certainly one of them if I lean only on my willpower. So instead, my approach is always having something wholesome available for me. In a way, every time I open the fridge, I only see something I made with my care and love, so I know exactly what I'm going to eat. As I go through this process, the habit has stuck and become norm to me. Now my body surprisingly doesn't crave for much of the indulgent food. In order for you to happen, I'd like to do meal prepping together in this video. This is the first video on my winter meal prep video, and next week I'll release the second winter meal prep video, so stay tuned for that. First up, we're gonna be making 1 pot salmon carrot rice. This is one of my kids' favorite. I have 1 cup of Japanese sushi rice. Rinse and drain the water a couple of times until the water becomes milky white. Soak the rice in water for 1 hour. In the meantime, grate the carrot. It's about 150 grams, equivalent to about 1 cup of grated carrot. Carrot will give a little bit of sweetness and pretty pink orange hue to the rice. My way of getting kids to eat more veggies is sneaking into what they already love. I know salmon rice is always a sweet spot for them, so why not add carrot to it? That's how this recipe has been created. To minimize the fishy smell of salmon, dry the moisture out by gently tapping with a kitchen cloth or paper towel. Sprinkle some salt and spread them equally on the surface. We're gonna wait for 10 minutes. What we are doing now is that we are trying to remove the moisture from the salmon as much as possible. The moisture is what causes the odor. When the soaking is done, drain the water and transfer to the pot. I use a heavy bottom pot or clay pot like this so that it will hold and distribute the heat more evenly. Add water followed by 2 tablespoons of rice wine, 1 tablespoon of mirin, 1 tablespoon of soy sauce, half teaspoon of salt. Mix that together. Then add grated carrot on top. Back to salmon. Now the moisture has come out. We're gonna pat it dry 1 more time and ready to marry with the rest of the ingredients. Place salmon on top. Bring it to the stove. Cook it on high. Once it comes to a boil, close the lid and lower the heat to low. Simmer for 10 minutes and we'll come back later. Next, we're gonna make some shrimp and Chinese cabbage noodle stir fry. First, we soak dried shrimp in warm water bath for 15 minutes. The shrimp is gonna soften and more flavor will be extracted. In 15 minutes, thinly sliced shiitake mushrooms, leeks, ginger, and garlic. As for the star of this show, I have huge Chinese cabbage, which is a winter seasonal vegetable in Japan. Shred white part into 1 inch and roughly chop up the green part. Chinese cabbage itself doesn't have much character except for its crunchy texture and a bit of sweetness. Hence, it is very versatile. You can use it for stir fry, making pickles, add it to the soup, and hot pot. Texture and taste will differ depending on how you cook. That makes it even more enjoyable. Lastly, we have Chinese chives. Just roughly chop up into about 2-inch pieces. Coming back to salmon carrot rice, it's been simmered for 10 minutes. Bring the heat to high and count for 15 seconds just to evaporate the excess moisture accumulating at the bottom, then off the heat. Let it steam for another 15 minutes with the lid on. We are finishing up the noodle stir fry. Drain the water and squeeze the excess moisture as much as possible. Don't forget to save the liquid as we use it later. To the pan, add 2 tablespoons of high heat oil. Here I'm using brown rice oil, but use any neutral oil you have on hand. Add ginger, garlic, and dried shrimp. Cook it on medium heat for 2 minutes. We are slowly heating up here to infuse more flavor as we don't want to burn. I'm warning you, if you don't remove the moisture enough from the dried shrimp, you're gonna have an oil splatter all over as I'm having it here. Pile up Chinese cabbage, leeks, shiitake mushrooms all at once. Sprinkle a couple pinch of salt and continue to cook it on high until the vegetables are mostly cooked but still retain their texture. At this point, add leftover juice from the dried shrimp, 1 tablespoon of sake, 1 tablespoon of soup stock powder, add glass noodle which I cut into about 3 inches long. Continue to cook it on medium heat for another 4 minutes or until glass noodle is fully cooked. At this point, add Chinese chives followed by a mixture of water and potato starch. Move the ingredients to the side and add it into the liquid, then immediately give it a stir. In a way, you can evenly thicken the sauce as opposed to having some lumps in your stir fry. When you reach just the right consistency you want, turn off the heat and splash some soy sauce along with toasted sesame oil. It's ready to be enjoyed. We can enjoy it on its own, but if you happen to have leftovers, we are in for the real treat, which is spring rolls. Cut the leftovers into small pieces by using kitchen scissors. Of course, he wants to try. Back them into the pan, heat up until just before it comes to a boil. Thicken the sauce even more with the potato starch mixture. You want it to be pretty thick, firm consistency when it comes to spring roll filling. If the sauce is too runny, the spring roll wrapper will tear and the filling will explode when it's baked. I will show you later as an example since I made an exact mistake in the process of experimenting. So this is the consistency we are looking for. There is no liquid, pretty firm and almost like a jelly. Maybe there's a better way to describe it, but I'm lacking in vocabulary. When you drop it, quite a lot of it actually sticks to the spatula. When it gets cold, it will firm up naturally, but when it's heated, it will loosen again. So check the consistency when it's still hot. Now the fun part, we have this spring roll wrapper. Lay down on the cutting board or plate and just scoop about 2 tablespoons of filling. Roll and tuck the sides in, then continue to roll towards the end. To seal the wrapper, I use a mixture of flour and water. It works as a glue. Keep going until all the filling is used up. On the baking sheet, lined with the parchment paper, place your spring rolls. You can shallow fry them in the pan, but I will go for an air fryer this time. Splash some oil on all sides. Make sure to do it on the bottom sides too. I recently went to the kitchen streets in Tokyo as I showed you in the previous video. I got this brush from a shop called Kanaya Burashi. It's so smooth. I'm looking forward to make grilled onigiri with this. Put them into the air fryer until the outside is nice and crisp. As I said, you can shallow fry them in the pan too. This is my creation number 1. It's totally a mess, but the taste was good. On the second trial, I got better results. Yay! Enjoy it with the vinegar, soy sauce, and a little bit of mustard if you want. My family all liked it, so I made a batch and enjoyed them throughout the week. Let's check on the rice. Remove the board and skin from the salmon, pack it into the rice and mix them together. You can store it up to 5 days in the fridge. My kids love to eat it with the nori seaweed.
Yosh! 食べる人
For the quick breakfast, I make homemade instant miso soup together with this salmon carrot rice bowl. I already showed you how to make homemade instant miso soup in the previous video, but let me quickly show you here. Take about 180 grams of miso paste, then add about 2 tablespoons of any dashi powder, it's just soup stock powder, and give it a good mix until everything is fully distributed. If you taste the miso soup a bit bland, then add more soup stock powder to your liking from the next time. Into the miso mixture, add dried shiitake mushrooms. It needs to be thinly sliced, otherwise it will be too hard to chew. Then add canned corn, followed by chopped spring onion. Then mix. Place about 1 tablespoon of miso mixture, wrap them up, twist it on top, and repeat the same process until you use up. Once we have this miso bowl, all we have to do is take 1 miso bowl into the serving bowl and pour the hot water to make a miso soup. No pot and knives are needed. Miso bowl can be stored in the freezer for a couple weeks. The soup and the onigiri will instantly warm you up from the inside on a cold winter morning. I can't skip Chinese cabbage pickle when it comes to the winter meal prep because I serve it pretty much with any dishes. We need quarter of Chinese cabbage, which is equivalent to 500 grams. To cut this gigantic Chinese cabbage, first make a notch at the bottom and pull it apart with your hand. Rinse them. Then chop them roughly. We want it to be big pieces since it's gonna shrink down after being fermented. Ideally, you want to wipe off the moisture completely and leave it under the sun for 2 to 3 hours to dry up. In a way, you can boost the natural sweetness of Chinese cabbage itself and result in flavor-packed pickles. In this video, I skipped this process, but it was still very good. When it comes to these simple pickles, it's very important to find a fresh cabbage. I wrote a whole article about Chinese cabbage, so please visit my website sometimes. Next, sprinkle some salt. I'm using sea salt, which is not coarse like Himalayan salt. Remember to add 2% salt of Chinese cabbage. My Chinese cabbage was about 650 grams, so adding about 13 grams of salt. Once you have a Chinese cabbage and salt in the zip bag, time to massage. Shake it around and massage. Just repeat the same process. I have kombu. Kombu is a type of seaweed cut into small pieces. Cut yuzu into half and remove the inside. Slice the zest into thin strips. I'm just adding a little bit, but if you prefer, you can add more. Use is optional, but I'm totally obsessed with it. Back to Chinese cabbage. In 5 minutes or so, you will start to see lots of water coming out and reduce the volume almost in quarter. Now add the zest of yuzu, shredded kombu, and red chili pepper. This chili pepper is not only for the spicy kick, it's more for the preservation purpose, so you don't want to skip it. I'm adding about 1 teaspoon of it. You don't taste much heat, so even if you are sensitive to heat, no worries. Massage again until it's thoroughly mixed. Vacuum the air and zip it completely. Put it on the tray and cover with another tray, popping something heavy on top, which is about 2 kilograms. I found these salt bags are very stable. As a pro tip, you want the zip bag opening to be upward so that the liquid doesn't leak as it's fermented. Pop them into the fridge and let it sit for 2 days. After 1 day, can you see lots of moisture coming out? It looks good, so wait for another one day. This time I'm putting only one bag. It's been 2 days and let me show you how it looks. You can also see the small bubbles and this is the sign of fermentation. Can't wait to dig in. It's sweet, savory, but not overly salty. I love the texture, it's so crunchy. Yeast gives us such a refreshing thing to it. You can keep it in the fridge for a week. Winter meal prep number 2 will be coming up next week. I split it into 2 videos since it's gonna easily go over 20 minutes if I make everything in one. So next week, I'm going to show you lots of recipes using daikon radish. So stay tuned for that. Thanks a lot for watching and see you on the next one. Bye bye. またね。